Number 1. This mysterious story happened in 2010. Two brothers named Nick and Mark simply disappeared without leaving a single trace behind. The city was simply horrified by such an event. But what happens next is even more shocking. Look closely. For several months, the police had no idea where two people had disappeared to. Suddenly, one of the boys' classmates finds a box in front of his house containing Nick and Mark's personal videos. The most shocking thing is that the sender of the box was Nick. It is hard to even imagine how this is possible. At first glance, the videos seem to be an ordinary diary of two guys, but the box contained creepy notes, thanks to which we learn where Nick and Mark have disappeared to. Nick went to the local cemetery, which, according to legend, is inhabited by real ghosts that he wants to see. All the graves and the church in the cemetery are dated 1800, and this makes Nick uneasy. He also visits the bridge, where hundreds of witnesses hear terribly frightening voices. Suddenly, Nick rushes to his car in horror. He categorically refuses to return to the cemetery, but in the next video he still decides to do so. This time he was not alone, but with his friend. The situation escalates to the limit, because they decided to go there at night. The perfect time for paranormal activity. They find themselves near the bridge again. The guys try to seem brave, completing challenges from each other. They decided to climb under the bridge. And as soon as the light goes out, something inexplicable happens. Nikok and his friend decide to turn on the light out of fear, and we see a creepy inhuman face watching the guys. Soon after, sounds are heard. Whether this creature is jumping on them or just climbing out of the water. Friends run in horror, but an unknown creature followed them. In his house, Nick saw a light behind the curtain and thought it was his brother. Opening the curtain, we see that there is absolutely no one there. Just a moment later, the house becomes incredibly cold to the point that steam starts coming out when you breathe, although it is the height of summer outside. Surprisingly, the guys came to the cemetery for the third time. They see strange lights, following which they find a mysterious book. And this was a big mistake. When they took it, truly creepy things started happening. Apparently, the owner of the book wants to return it. The more times they come to the cemetery, the more mysterious the events become. Every day they encounter inexplicable events in their house. Look at Mark's painting hanging on the wall. Just a few seconds later, it falls, and the brother disappears without leaving a single trace. Noka and his friend do not stop and make a simply shocking discovery. Not far from the cemetery, they find an old abandoned barn. Looking inside, they feel a disgusting smell, and later find its source. The smell was coming from a person. I don't think I need to explain which one. Next week, Mark disappears. He was never seen again. Nick returned to the cemetery in search of his brother, and this was his last entry. He was haunted by a creepy figure dressed in a long jumpsuit. And in her hand was a surgical instrument. Apparently, she chose Mark, and then Nick. Where do you think the guys disappeared to? Write your guesses in the comments. Number 2. 3 researchers from Mexico go to an abandoned building, but someone or even something was clearly against their presence. Look closely. At the very beginning of the hike, we see strange balls. It was clearly not dust or even insects. This incident was only the beginning of the creepy events that will happen to them. One of the researchers begins to feel unwell, suffocating and constantly coughing. Although he claims that everything is fine, this is far from true. The team is seriously worried, but decides to see the matter through to the end. They continue on their way, and the man stumbles, and the guys decide to sit him down. And at that moment, something inexplicable happens. We clearly hear the noise, but there are only the three of them in the building, and there is simply no rational explanation for what it was. Moreover, when one of the researchers says, "Hello," we see a creepy white figure behind the building. And the guys decide to see what kind of creature it was, and they find absolutely no traces that someone was here. Having walked around the entire building, they do not find a single soul in the buildings. At that moment, they are interrupted by a creepy female voice, and this seriously frightened the researchers. A few seconds later, we hear a second voice, which is eerily reminiscent of crying. It could have been the wind, but when the researchers heard a third scream in the building, there was no time for jokes. It became clear that there was someone or something else in the building. As the filming continued, their friend was getting worse and worse. He could barely walk. Obviously, some forces are exerting a bad influence on him, because he was completely healthy before coming to this cursed house. And the guys find a bunch of garbage, trying to explain the strange voices with this. But this does not make it any easier, because the man never made contact. The researchers went up to the second floor, and at that moment something inexplicable happens. We clearly see how a creepy woman entered the building, not responding to the command. And the guys are simply shocked by her appearance and decide to go down to find her. But once again, the man seemed to evaporate, as if he had never been there. They carefully checked every corner of the building, and at that moment they heard a terrible crack. And at that moment, a man from the team loses consciousness. This was the last straw. And the guys tried to bring him to his senses, but it was useless. His skin was red, and the guys had no choice but to stop filming. The video ends, but questions remain. What was happening in this building, and what kind of creatures were chasing the guys throughout the entire filming? Number 3. Have you ever felt someone else's gaze, like a guard? Both the YouTuber and his girlfriend saw a creepy, mysterious figure on the street. They were even scared and decided to call the police. This was only the beginning of their problems, and no police could help them. Even after the second call, the police did not come. The man could have just been walking, but this is not a simple video, but a mystical one. The unknown figure returned on the second night, continuing to simply watch the couple. This time, the young people were already really horrified and could not find the words to describe the situation. The creepiest thing is the paranormal flashes that occur during the visit of this creature. They will regularly occur throughout the video. The couple began to become paranoid. They constantly felt the presence of something inexplicable. But the craziest thing will happen next. Look closely. One day, the figure again appeared near their walls, making a creepy, nasty hum. And, of course, there was a red flash. At some point, the creature became more aggressive and began to put notes under their door, which contained only one word: hello. This is pure madness, but the situation continued to escalate. Then the figure began to knock on their window. But when the couple opened the curtains, they saw that there was no one there. There is simply no rational explanation for this situation. One of the creepiest notes is a drawing of this very figure, which she herself put under the door. Whatever this creature was, it was clearly not a person. After some time, the figure disappeared, but only for a while. The couple periodically checked the window, thinking that there was no one there. In fact, the creature was on their balcony. It was simply holding a note, watching the young people. Now they met face to face. There is simply no rational explanation for this event. I do not think that this creature just came to visit for tea. The couple decided to move, but the figure began to haunt them in their new house. In the end, one day it simply disappeared into thin air. But let's not, it is possible that this is temporary and that it will manifest itself again. Number 4. In 2017, a YouTuber made a video in which he talked about paranormal activity in his house. He claimed that he repeatedly heard voices and noticed shadows while he was completely alone in the house, and this made him feel uneasy. One day, he started playing a console with his brother, and suddenly the TV turned on by itself. It can be assumed that it was turned on with the remote, but they were alone in the house. When the brothers were at the other end of the room, someone or something pulled the plug out of the socket. At this moment, we see a creepy white ball moving next to his hand. Their problems did not end at this point. It was just beginning. The YouTuber stopped sleeping, as he felt like there was someone or something else in the room. There are bags under his eyes, which indicate that he is telling the truth. What then scares him so much? After some time, he decided to clean the house and add spirit repellent. At this point we see the mysterious ball flying past the camera again. And this is no coincidence. When it started processing the room, harsh sounds began. The completely functional and new camera completely lost sound. For some time, the paranormal activity stopped, but the scariest part of the video was still ahead. At 3 a.m., a terrible knock was heard on his wall, and then on his door. Opening the door, we see that there is absolutely no one there. What is going on in this damn house? The young man moved out, and 2 years later the situation repeated itself. When he was giving a tour of the house to his subscribers, we hear this creepy chair again. And again, there are only the two of them in the house. At this time, the equipment began to lag again, and we see this on the example of the computer. Obviously, an unknown creature does not want to leave this guy. On the surveillance camera, we see how an unknown creepy figure climbs the stairs and slowly approaches the young people. At this moment, the door abruptly closes, although the latch is on their side and the creature fails to enter the room. The crazy video ends at this point, but I think it will be hard to forget. Before the next moment, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. Number 5. 2 years ago, a couple moved into a small house on a farm. And imagine their surprise when paranormal activity began to occur in the house. This could be expected anywhere, but not on an ordinary farm. Over the 2 years of their life in the house, various things happened, but what happened in this video is truly frightening. Watch closely. The piano can play, but not by itself. At the beginning of the video, nothing happens, no mysterious white light appears in the dark. The curtains are closed, and it's night outside, so it simply cannot be there. What would you say if the clock opened by itself for no apparent reason? It is simply impossible to do such a thing. What is happening speaks of real paranormal activity in the house, and it is truly frightening. I think you will be interested to know who lived in house before. Before the couple, a grandmother lived here, and she loved to play the piano. According to rumors, she died at 2:49 a.m. That's when the clock opened by itself. That explains a lot, but it doesn't make it any easier. We can also see the piano keys playing by themselves. Do you feel goosebumps running down your body? And finally, the tray on the right starts moving by itself. The spirit of the former owner clearly doesn't want to say goodbye to her house. The atmosphere is getting gloomier with each passing second. The pianos start playing more and more actively, and simply inexplicable things are happening around. I just don't have a logical explanation for everything that's happening. We also see the piano lid slam shut. Imagine hearing such a terrible noise in the middle of the night. It's not a test for the faint of heart. We can also notice a reflection on the piano, where it's clearly visible that someone is sitting at it, and then they disappear just as abruptly. What the hell is going on here? Be sure to check out my scary video playlist. See you soon.